Previously on Pony Wars, Team Challenger and Team Camaro have their engines back in and have wrapped up almost all of their other mods and are starting to leave Team Mustang behind. Now it's time to install some Pro Chargers and fire up these pony cars.
We're laughing because if we don't, we will cry.
If it ain't broke, don't fix it.
The Hemi is gonna go back in the car.
We're gonna make so much power, it's gonna shatter.
The engine didn't even fall out once.
Basically, here's the deal.
This is gonna be a competition, and we are coming to win.
We're delirious. Dude, this smells like grape jelly.
Having left no question as to who will be finishing their build first, we on the Vengeance Racing side of the shop have turned to the finer details of the build as we take the last steps towards firing up our modified Camaro.
Did you actually do the painting? Or just the heat gunning?
No, I did the painting.
Okay. I mean, you do have some history of paint.
Yeah.
Although this is rattle can, so I'm not sure this is your norm.
And solvent popping like a mother.
Yeah, I was gonna say. Oh yeah, you're just barely warm and
I just wanted
happy on it.
Just blowing the solvents out of it.
Yeah.
Ron, I know you got a lot of experience with Pro Charger and using them on the various builds you guys do, but why are we going with this with the Vengeance Camaro?
It fit the rules of the build, which required us to stay air to air. So I actually chose Pro Charger's D1X head unit. They're much more efficient than the predecessors.
Okay.
So we went with the D1X, knowing it's got the potential to make 1,000+ wheel horsepower, and then, win the drag strip and the dyno competition like we're here to do.
This, I'm really happy with. This came out awesome. Deceptively good match to the factory paint, but it really does make it pop.
All right, so it's Thursday afternoon. We're about 3.5 days into the build. This morning we've had a few button-up items with the Pro Charger, and now we're clean up, about to do fluids and initial test fire.
Okay, so we're back on Team Mustang. So I think we're gonna start up top, try and get as much of the valve cover and intake manifold installation done as possible. And then it will be time for Pro Charger pulley on this crank pulley. And that is going to make the boost, and that's gonna make the noise, and that's gonna make the tire smoke, which makes me happy. So we have a special guest in the shop today, Tom Bogner from Lucas Oil, one of my friends. We usually hang out at the dyno shop.
A lot of fun on the dyno, many pulls over there.
Oh my God, yes. Tested a lot of oil, had a lot of good times. But you are a Mustang guy, so you were happy to come over here and check this thing out.
We've run these things 300 pulls on the dyno with our 520 API oil in them. So these engines, the Coyote engine, the way it oils, it really does well with even an API oil. So we'll switch it over to the Lucas 520 and we'll beat the hell out of this thing.
Well, you're going to be here with us today. Are you going to hang out and help us with a couple of things?
Sure.
I know there's a bunch of stuff on this car that's similar to yours, so we'll use all the hands we can get. The Camaro guys they're a little bit ahead of us right now. We need to stop that. Yeah, we don't want to even look their direction.
That's
so.
okay.
We chose the P1X because frankly, it's a better fit for the Coyote. And with a stock long block, we believe that based on our experience, that P1X will still make 850 to 900 at the tires.
Over in Michigan, Arrington is getting ready to put the crowning jewel, our Pro Charger D1X, onto our Challenger. The last bits of any build are always a little fiddly, but with any luck, we'll be driving this whale over to the dyno in no time at all. The Challenger is getting really close to being done. Daryl is working like a madman to get everything finished, and he's actually installing some of the supercharger parts right now. Looks like a couple idlers, is that right?
Yes, sir. Getting the idlers and the mounting bracket in. I'm actually doing the tensioner right at the moment. And then this is an adjustable tensioner, so we'll be able to adjust it from the back side here instead of having to get a wrench down the front.
and that'll make it a lot easier. Luckily ProCharger hooked us up with this kit. It's their stage 2 setup. It's a D1X head unit, support over 1,000 horsepower, and a couple of the options with the stage 2. You get their big red race valve, which is really nice. It looks nice, and it also functions really well compared to a normal bypass. And then it also comes with a bigger front mount intercooler, and last but certainly not least is their dedicated 8-rib drive, and this is an 8-rib drive balancer, but this is from ATI. This is also a really crucial part. We don't want any belt slip, and we're not gonna have it thanks to this stage 2 setup. With great cylinder pressure comes great responsibility. When it comes to force induction, you do not want any restriction on the front of the turbo or the supercharger, and that's why we picked up a K&N intake. It's a little bit longer filter, and obviously with K&N brand, it's gonna last a long time, provide us with the maximum flow we need. I want to talk about the strategy of each of the cars just a little bit, because the Challenger and the Camaro, they put a lot of money of the budgets into the engines, and I totally understand that. That's exactly what we did here on the Challenger. You know, forged pistons, forged rods, custom camshaft, valve spring upgrade, better push rods, all of that. The Mustang, they left the engine completely stock. They did nothing. And I personally think that that could come back and bite them. I wouldn't call this Pony Wars. I would call this Challenger versus the world. Good luck, everybody else. So we have been mostly done for quite some time. And I'm getting tired of it not being done. So we're just gonna stay here and work late until it's done.
Team Camaro has been waiting the entire week for this moment. And just before we fire the car up for the first time, everyone on Team Camaro is about to find out if our week's worth of hard work will pay off. Everything checks out. It's time to oil up the car and turn the key.
We are going to be using Lucas break-in oil, but I want you to kind of take me through, and everybody watching too, why it is so important to use a break-in oil.
So the zinc and the phosphorus, the higher levels, especially on the break-in when everything's fresh, it just allows everything to seat in, allows your rings to seat in a little easier. We'll run this on the break-in, we'll get your tune in, get the car running good, and then we could switch it to the full synthetic.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I mean, I'm a Camaro guy through and through, so, we can get rid of that. We can get rid of that Mustang problem you got.
I hope so. Come fix my head gasket for me.
And there's the segment.
All right, so initial startup was a perfect success. A little rough to get the fuel system primed, but once that was done, she fired up, purred like a kitten. We've got great oil pressure. I was logging with the Diablo Trinity tuner tool to make sure that all the parameters look good. And right now we're just getting a full heat cycle in the engine, and we're gonna go out and go for a drive here in a bit.
And that is a great sounding engine. After the initial startup, we rolled out of the garage to run it gently. Remember, these cars are no longer street legal, but a lap around the parking lot was sufficient for our purposes and thoroughly enjoyable as well. After removing the oil filter to have a look for any signs of trouble, the oil in the filter came out crystal clear, which means one thing: Team Camaro is done.
It sounds great, it rides great, it looks great. I mean, one thing I haven't done is convince Ron to give it to me. Hi, Ron.
Hi, Dennis.
He ain't gonna give it to me.
Team Mustang.
Yes.
If we're not interrupting anything, we know all this banter back and forth is a good time, and we've had a lot of fun with it. However, we are done, and if we can give you guys a hand in any way.
But there's one caveat to that. Who brought the beer? Because I don't have any beer. I'm normally the guy.
Not to take one of those low-profile jabs again, but James went out and actually got us a 12-pack for finishing the car in 3 days.
Dude, then I'll take, bring beer.
Well, we've already drank them. That's why we're over here offering help.
After a late night finishing up the last details, our Challenger is finally ready to go. We'll load the initial tune from our remote tuner into the car using our Trinity T2 to account for all of our upgrades, then it's time to fire it up.
Okay, we're getting ready to fire it up for the first time. So now, fix that fuel leak, clean up the tune a little bit because it was a little angry, but hey, that's a win for me.
It sounds like we might have a few demons to exercise here, but we'll get it figured out in a bit.
With the competition all firing up and closing up shop, it's just us left to finally put on our finishing touches. It's a lot of little, but fun parts. In the Mustang, we're going to use these E3 112 racing plugs, and they feature E3's patented diamond fire technology. And in this case, because of the fact that we're running under boost, you really do have to pay attention to getting a better spark. The nice thing about this is that oftentimes with a traditional spark plug with a single strap, you have to shrink the plug gap so far in order to keep it from blowing out. Well, these plugs not only deliver a higher current, but also because of that shape of this electrode and the ground strap, we are not going to have to worry about spark being blown out. These things are going to provide us with all the spark we need to make big power and beat everyone else. We go vroom soon. We may not have been the team that finished first in our build, and quite frankly, we never expected to be the team that finished first in our build, but I will assure you that we laughed more than anybody else will during any of this build, because my team is awesome. Apparently, we need a key.
To keep the fueling consistent between all three cars, VP provided this C9 fuel. It's running in the Camaro, the Mustang, and this Challenger. It's kind of a reddish pinkish color coming out, but basically the main things you need to know about this fuel, its engine octane rating is 91. It's also going to be way more consistent than what you can get at the pump, because a lot of times octane and age of the fuel can vary a lot from station to station and even from pump to pump. For a lot of you guys that know about fuel, specific gravity is about 0.72. It is unleaded, and the R plus M over 2 is actually about 96.8. So I mean, it's roughly a 96 octane, because engine octane and rated octane are two completely different numbers. But overall, this is a really good fuel, especially when you're looking to go consistent pump gas, better than 94, and really, it's just awesome. It's gonna help us make power. So now that we've broken in the engine, we drained all the break-in oil out, and we're actually going with Lucas's racing engine oil. It's synthetic 10W40. Break-in oil is really great for new internal engine parts, but over time you want to swap to something like this. This also has added zinc, just like break-in oil, which is really good for high-performance engines as well as higher RPMs, but it's also really good for just driving down the road and putting miles on. Maybe she'll start. There it is. Sounds better. Maybe they got the timing figured out. Hopefully. Let's see what kind of data we get right here. Let it idle, let it try and do its thing. Perfect. Screw the Mustang and the Camaro. They're a bunch of wusses making weak horsepower numbers, and we're gonna kick their bottoms. That was terrible trash talk, but it's true. Daryl's just getting ready for the first preliminary run on the dyno, okay? And he's not gonna go wide open throttle, he's not gonna do anything crazy, because it was kind of like I said before, where we want to ease into it, want to make sure the tables and the ignition and the fuel and everything is just right. You don't want to get right into a dyno and flog a brand new setup when you don't have everything exactly lined out 100%. That's the way you hurt parts. The Challenger's on the dyno behind me. Hopefully you can see it back there. And we just did the first pull. It was a baby pull. super fat on fuel, super conservative on timing. It made some pretty good numbers, all right? Like, I mean, I don't know if you want to know what it actually made. I mean, if you're a Mustang fan and a Camaro fan, you definitely don't want to know what it made, because for a first hit, it could hurt your feelings. At 5,195 RPMs to be exact, we haven't even found peak torque yet, let alone peak horsepower, which means there's a lot of room to grow. And who knows, this thing might make peak power past 7,000. And then Camaro Mustang guys are really gonna have their feelings hurt.
Get it out of here. Oh man. 764 horsepower to the rear tires at 6,100 RPMs. And that, I'm guessing, will go up because it's still making power when you let out. And torque is 662 pound-feet at 5,650 RPMs.
Yeah, we're still climbing.
We're still climbing on horsepower. Torque that's a big torque curve. This car is so loud, my brain hurts, and I have earplugs on top of my fingers in my ears because it is so dang loud. The earplugs are just not cutting it. I keep jamming them in there further. It's just insane. The noise this car makes is wonderful. Oh, as Lyle Barnett would say, them boys are in trouble. The big problem that we just had, one of the ties broke loose and the transmission line came into the supercharger belt and pulley and it actually cut a hole, and that's pretty much where we're at because we can't get the line fixed tonight. We're gonna try and probably adapt and make it an AN line rather than a factory one, but it was looking really good. It was sounding really good. We were slowly starting to creep up on it. I mean, we were still only at 6,200 RPMs and it's still making power. So that's gonna be a Sunday fix, possibly Monday, just because of parts, and that's a wrap for today.
This is the guy, right?
Coming in hot.
Mike's the best in the biz, but let's get to it. Hey, Ron.
I'm getting hungry, yeah.
Bring Mike over here. Tell him about him.
Well, Mike Carnahan has been our calibrator at Vengeance Racing for 13 years. Prior to that, he was a calibrator for a high-performance Chevrolet division, probably one of the most well-known and most well-respected Gen 5 LT tuners in the country as well at this point, as you'll see shortly when we hit the dyno.
Let's strap the Camaro down and see what kind of number we get.
To be clear, we aren't in competition mode yet. The numbers we see today are preliminary, and our main goal is to get good bass tunes into the cars so we're ready for the races in Vegas. That doesn't mean Team Camaro isn't going to flex a little bit and show Team Mustang we came to win.
This is what it's all about, getting this thing strapped down and seeing what it's gonna make on the dyno. Now, Taylor already put the VP fuel in it, but we gotta talk to Mike real quick to find out what his plan is. So take me through your basic process on tuning a car like this.
We use the Diablo Trinity to go ahead and write a couple of bass tunes that we've already tested. We're going to make a few hits on the dyno, logging everything with the Trinity. We'll check those logs out and make the adjustments that we need. As long as fuel pressure looks good, boost looks good, we're going to keep a good eye on knock. If everything looks good, we're going to go ahead and run it up, and we're going to give it all it's got.
All we got to do is get Ron out of the out of the driver's seat, and then you and I can make some noise.
Ain't happening, Chief.
Never going to happen.
Okay, I'll just go watch the TV.
Please, thank you.
5,000. No, 6 years, 5,000.
All right, so first initial shakedown, what kind of adjustments are you going to make, or what did you see?
Air fuel was pretty close. It's a little lean. I'm probably going to richen it up a tad, and then we're going to make a few adjustments to the spark. Fuel pressure looks good. That first pull was only at 5,000 RPMs. We kind of just validate everything and make sure everything looks good, which it does. It's only going to go up from here.
I noticed that seat's empty. Oh, shit, there he is. Damn it.
We're still soft on timing, and we're still not pulling to the rev limiter. So we're just creeping up on everything because it's such a new combination.
They're creeping up. I'd push an old lady into a mud puddle to have a car that had 752 at the wheel.
Once I get a full graph on it, and we see where the boost and spark is, then we can make a real determination on it.
$773.
Ford next, Mustang, and Mike over at Arrington and the boys, they better have their big boy pants on because this thing's making some power.
$868.
Damn.
So far, I'm winning.
Fuel system support, 1,000 all day.
That's how we do it, brother.
I am super excited today because we've had him on the phone tuning this thing before, but now Mike Wilson is here in the flesh. How you doing, Mikey?
Good, man. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. So you're on the laptop looking at data already. So what are we going to do after each and every poll?
I've got a plethora full of PIDs that I'll pull from the T2 that are already be configured on the screen. Fuel, spark, temperatures, RPM, things like that. And I'll pull that into our data viewer software, review it, make changes to the software, put the tune back in, stick it in the car, make a pull, do it all over again.
So we make noise, we review data, we add some more things, and that all results in big horsepower. Technically, we had less work to do than the Camaro guys, and so they were giving us a hard time saying, oh, we should have finished first. Well, you know what? They are absolute experts, and they showed it while they built that Camaro. It isn't a race to see who finished the build first. It's a race to see who can make the most power, who can be the quickest on the autocross, the drag strip, and, of course, on the speed stop. So it's all of those combined that matters. Who finishes the car first is irrelevant, but now it's time to do some tuning.
everything looked good on the data log. So we are about to look at the dyno graph and see what it made. We still got another 12 to 1500 RPM to go. Everything looking good. I think give it another roll.
No good. What? How are you gonna do it? What? No, it just made a shit ton of power.
Yeah, it just started cranking it in hard.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
It was just so abrupt. I was like, okay, not sure what that was.
No, it was making some steam now. So, yeah. Well, I don't know how the other teams did, but I'm pretty happy with how it went on our end. Team Mustang has decided we're going to play these numbers close to the vest, though, so you're going to have to wait until the competition to see just what our little 5-liter was able to do with that P1X Pro Charger. If we don't win after all of this, like, scheming,
I know.
I'm going to feel like an idiot.
No other car has a freaking chance.
We got him! Didn't we? Hell yeah, done! That's a real burnout from the Mopar. We better be worried.
Just gonna see how things play out.
But now my street racer hat is on. Woo!
He said 2 tenths.
No, it's 2 seconds.
Oh, he's the autocross guy.